Trapped in the ruined bunker, he never expected to find two stunning alien sisters waiting for him. The wasteland stretched in every direction, a broken skeleton of a world that had once known cities, laughter, and light. Jack walked alone across the cracked earth, his boots grinding against dust that had once been stone. The sky above was the color of rust, painted with the scars of storms that never truly passed. He had been walking for hours, though he no longer kept track of time. Time did not matter in a place where every day looked the same. His rifle was slung across his back, scarred and dented from too many battles. He carried little else, just a pack with stale rations, a knife, and a flask with half an inch of water. Jack was a scavenger, but he had once been a soldier. The war had ended in ruin, and the victors had been no one. He wore his past across his skin in the form of scars and in the hollowness of his eyes. The wind picked up, sharp as broken glass. He pulled his coat tighter around his frame, though it did little to shield him. The storm was coming. He could see it rolling across the horizon, a wall of red dust swallowing the remains of the world. He needed shelter, and he needed it quickly. Ahead, half buried in rubble and ash, Jack saw the jagged mouth of an old military bunker. Its steel door leaned on broken hinges, the faded insignia above it scratched away by time. He hesitated. Bunkers were not safe places. Most were tombs filled with collapsed walls, malfunctioning defense systems, or worse. Yet the storm was closing in, and he had no choice. Jack reached the bunker just as the first lash of the storm whipped across the plain. Dust blinded his vision, and the roar of the wind drowned everything else. He planted his boots firmly, braced his shoulder, and forced his weight against the door. Metal groaned in protest. Rust flaked beneath his hands. With a final heave, the door screeched open just wide enough for him to slip inside. The storm's howl died to a muffled rumble as the door clanged shut behind him. Darkness swallowed him whole. He stood still, rifle half raised, listening. The silence pressed against his ears. Then, from somewhere deeper inside, faint lights flickered to life. Jack advanced carefully. The air was stale and smelled faintly of ozone and rot. His footsteps echoed along the corridor, each step a reminder that he was entering the belly of something ancient and long forgotten. The walls were lined with corroded panels, their screens dead except for the occasional twitch of light. He rounded a corner, and that was when he saw them. Two figures stood in the gloom, outlined by the weak glow of failing lights. At first, Jack thought the storm had made him hallucinate. But as the flicker steadied for a brief moment, the sight froze him in place. They were women, but not human. Their skin carried a faint luminescence, as if the bunker's pale light had seeped into them. One was tall and carried herself with a fiery, confident stance, her eyes glowing with a molten amber hue. The other was smaller, delicate, with eyes the color of deep oceans that seemed to shimmer even in the dark. Their hair flowed like strands of metal and silk, catching every fragment of light. Jack blinked, but they did not vanish. They were real. The taller one narrowed her glowing eyes, stepping protectively in front of the other. Her voice cut through the silence, sharp but laced with exhaustion. Human! Jack tightened his grip on his rifle. He had seen many things in this wasteland, but never this. His instinct told him to retreat, yet something deeper rooted him in place. Their presence felt impossible, but also undeniable. The smaller one peeked out from behind her sister, her voice soft, trembling, and yet filled with hope. Please do not leave us. We have been trapped here for so long. Jack's throat tightened. The words were accented, unusual but clear enough. He lowered the barrel of his rifle slightly, though his muscles stayed tense. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low and rough. The taller one lifted her chin. "I am Leora. This is my sister, Saris. Our vessel fell long ago. This bunker has been our prison ever since." Jack frowned. His soldier's mind screamed caution. The war had left the earth littered with enemies and false promises. Yet the desperation in their eyes struck him harder than any warning. He could see it, the way Leora's strong front cracked ever so slightly at the edges, and the way Saris clung to her arm like a child reaching for safety. The bunker groaned, as if awakened by their voices. Somewhere in the dark, a mechanical hum stirred. Jack's gut clenched. Old bunkers were never truly silent. If the systems were still alive, then something else was coming. "Why are you here?" Jack demanded. His voice echoed through the hallway, swallowed by the metal walls. Leora's fiery gaze held his, unflinching. "Because we were waiting, whether for death or for someone like you." Before Jack could respond, the hum grew louder. The lights above flared to life, flooding the corridor in sickly yellow. The air vibrated with the sound of ancient machinery grinding awake. From the ceiling, metallic limbs uncoiled, and the shadows shifted into the shapes of drones, their red eyes snapping open one by one. Saris gasped, clutching her sister. Jack swung his rifle up, instincts igniting like sparks. The bunker was not empty. It had teeth, and they were already closing in. He realized with a grim certainty that whatever these sisters were, whatever strange beauty they carried, they were not lying about being trapped. They were prey in a cage of iron, and now he had walked into the same cage with them. Jack's finger curled against the trigger. He felt the familiar weight of survival pressing down on him, the same weight he had carried through every battle of his life. But this time he was not alone. The sisters stood with him, fear and determination burning in their luminous eyes. The storm outside raged against the earth, but the real storm was about to break within the bunker walls. The first drone dropped from the ceiling with a metallic shriek, landing on 6 blade-like legs that scraped against the floor. Its red sensor eye fixed on Jack, then darted to the sisters. 2 more followed, their metal bodies unfolding like predators stretching after a long sleep. The hum grew louder as the corridor filled with the promise of violence. Jack did not think. He acted. His rifle snapped to his shoulder, and the sharp crack of gunfire shattered the silence. The first drone bucked as bullets tore into its core, sparks spraying across the walls, collapsed with a scream of grinding gears. The other 2 leapt forward, blades flashing. "Stay behind me!" Jack shouted, though he already knew the command would not be obeyed. Leora darted past him, her movements sharp and fearless. With a sudden gesture, energy flared from her palm, a burning arc of light that seared into the second drone. The machine shrieked, stumbling as smoke hissed from its cracked frame. Jack blinked, startled, but there was no time to question. The third drone lunged for Saris. Saris let out a cry, stumbling back. Jack's boots pounded the floor as he rushed forward. He slammed his rifle stock into the drone's sensor eye, shattering the lens. Sparks flared, and he followed with 2 quick shots into its chest. The machine folded inward, metal limbs twitching before falling still. The corridor was filled with smoke, gunpowder, and the sizzling stink of burning metal. Jack's chest heaved with every breath. Leora stood with her arm outstretched, her palm glowing faintly as the energy slowly faded. Saris clung to her sister, eyes wide with fear but also relief. Jack lowered his rifle, scanning the ceiling. More shadows stirred above, shifting like vultures waiting for their turn. His jaw tightened. The bunker was not going to let them go easily. He turned toward the sisters. "Can you fight?" Leora's fiery eyes met his. She lifted her chin, pride burning in her voice. "I can." Saris is not trained, but she is stronger than she believes. Saris swallowed hard, her luminous gaze dropping. I will try." Jack gave a single nod. His soldier's instinct told him to treat them as liabilities, yet something deeper pushed against that instinct. He had seen fear break soldiers before, but the way Saris clung to her sister and still tried to steady herself spoke louder than words. A drone shrieked overhead, dropping into the hallway. Jack fired, his bullets tearing it apart mid-leap. Metal shards clattered across the floor. Leora moved beside him, her energy striking like lightning into another machine. For the first time in years, Jack fought not only for himself, but shoulder to shoulder with someone else. Minutes passed like hours. The corridor became a battlefield of smoke and sparks. Jack's ears rang with the thunder of his rifle and the crackling hiss of alien energy. His arms ached from recoil, yet his movements stayed sharp. Each time a drone lunged, he met it with steel, fire, and determination. When the last machine fell, the bunker returned to silence, though the faint hum of machinery still echoed in the distance. Jack stood breathing hard, sweat streaking his dirt-stained face. Leora lowered her arm, her expression fierce but controlled. Saris clung to her, trembling, then turned her wide gaze on Jack. For the first time, he saw gratitude shining through the fear. "You saved us," she whispered. Jack shook his head, wiping grime from his brow. "No, we saved each other." Leora gave him a long, steady look. It was not trust, not yet, but it was no longer pure suspicion. The wall between them had cracked, and through it, the first thread of understanding had begun to weave. The silence stretched. Jack used it to reload, sliding bullets into his rifle with practiced hands. His voice was low, but steady. "We cannot stay here. More of those things will come." Saris's lips trembled. "Where will we go? We have searched and searched, but every path leads back to the same walls." Jack glanced at the ceiling where shadows still stirred faintly. The bunker was alive, its systems restless and watching. "Then we find a way deeper. There has to be another exit or at least a control core. If this place is still awake, then something is keeping it alive." Leora stepped forward, her fiery eyes sharp. "Why help us, human? You could leave now. The storm outside will pass, and you could go on alone." Jack met her gaze. He wanted to answer with cynicism, to tell her that he owed them nothing, that survival was the only law left. Yet the words did not come. Instead, he thought of the way Saris had trembled, still willing to try. He thought of Leora's fierce defiance as she fought beside him. And deep down, though he would not admit it, he thought of the light in their eyes. Alien, strange, but hauntingly beautiful. "Because walking away would mean leaving you to die," he said finally. His voice was flat, but beneath it burned a quiet certainty. Leora studied him for a moment longer, then gave a short nod. It was not agreement, but it was acceptance. The three of them began to move deeper into the bunker. Their footsteps echoed against the steel, the corridor stretching endlessly before them. Every flicker of the failing lights made Saris jump, and every groan of shifting metal made Jack's finger twitch against the trigger. Yet, with every step, the distance between them grew smaller. Saris walked close to Jack, her hand brushing his arm once as if by accident. The touch was fleeting, but her gaze lingered. Leora, ever watchful, noticed though she said nothing. Her eyes, sharp as fire, stayed locked on Jack as if testing his every movement. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became. Pipes lined the walls, dripping with condensation. The floor sloped downward, leading them toward the heart of the bunker. Jack felt it in his bones. Whatever awaited them, there was not safety, but another trial. Still, he walked on. And for the first time in years, he was not walking alone. The corridor stretched endlessly downward, winding like the veins of some buried beast. The dim lights flickered above, casting long shadows that twisted with every step. Jack moved first, his rifle raised, every sense sharpened. Behind him, he could hear the quiet footsteps of the sisters, light and careful, like echoes of another world. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Breath misted faintly in the air, and the metallic taste of the bunker pressed against Jack's tongue. The silence was heavy, broken only by the steady drip of water and the occasional crackle of old wires sparking faintly in the walls. After a while, Saris's soft voice broke the silence. "Human, why do you keep walking? You could have left us." Jack did not turn. His eyes scanned every corner, every flicker of shadow. "Because I am tired of walking alone." The words surprised even him. He had not meant to speak them aloud, yet once they left his lips, they carried a truth he could not deny. Leora's footsteps quickened until she walked beside him. Her fiery gaze studied his profile, sharp and unyielding. "You say that, but you carry yourself like a man who does not need anyone." Jack gave a short, humorless breath. "Need has nothing to do with it. Survival does not ask if you want company." Leora tilted her head, her expression unreadable. For a moment, he thought she might press further, but she remained silent, her thoughts hidden behind the flame of her eyes. Saris, however, walked closer, her curiosity unhindered by her sister's caution. "Your eyes, they are heavy, like stone. You have seen much death." Jack's jaw tightened. Memories surged like ghosts. The screams of comrades, the flash of explosions, the endless nights of blood and silence. He swallowed them down, burying them beneath the same armor he had carried for years. "I was a soldier," he said flatly. "I fought in the last war. I fought until there was nothing left to fight for." Saris's luminous eyes shimmered with a sadness that felt far too gentle for the cold metal halls. She reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing his arm. "In my people's way, a touch means we share your pain, that you are not alone." Jack stiffened, unused to such closeness. But Saris's hand lingered, her eyes sincere. For her, the gesture was simple, natural. For him, it stirred something long buried, something he had thought dead with the world. Leora noticed. Her gaze hardened, and she spoke sharply. "Saris, do not give promises you cannot keep." Saris blinked, pulling her hand back. Confusion flickered across her face. "I only meant..." "You meant to bind yourself..." Leora cut in, her tone edged with warning. "To touch a human is not the same as touching one of our own. Be careful with what you offer." The air thickened with tension. Jack kept his eyes forward, though he felt the weight of both sisters pressing against him in different ways. One with fiery suspicion, the other with soft misunderstanding. After several long moments, Jack spoke, his voice low. "In human ways, a touch can mean many things. Comfort, trust, sometimes more. But no promise is bound in a gesture unless it is spoken aloud." Saris's eyes widened, as if she had just been caught in a mistake. Her cheeks glowed faintly with light, the alien version of a blush. She whispered, "Then I did not mean to bind. I only wished to comfort." Jack gave a short nod. "Then take it as comfort. Nothing more." The tension eased slightly, though Leora's eyes remained sharp, watching every flicker of his expression. As they continued deeper, the air shifted again. The corridor widened into a chamber filled with collapsed metal and shattered consoles. Old banners, torn and blackened, clung to the walls. In the center lay the remains of something not human. A skeleton stretched across the floor, its bones long and delicate, its skull elongated with ridges that caught the faint light. Saris gasped, covering her mouth. Leora's eyes narrowed, sorrow flickering behind her fire. Jack crouched beside the bones. He studied the fragments of armor still clinging to the figure, the symbols etched into the plates. He did not recognize the language, but the posture was clear. The alien had died defending this place. "They were like you," Jack murmured, glancing at the sisters. Saris knelt beside him, her hand trembling as she brushed the dust from the armor. "Not like us, but close. Cousins, perhaps. Their ships traveled long before ours." Leora rested her hand on her sister's shoulder. "Do not linger, Saris. The dead cannot guide us." Jack rose, his rifle still in hand. But the sight of the bones lingered in his mind. The bunker was more than a tomb for machines. It was a graveyard for strangers who had once fought for survival, just as he did now. As they pressed onward, danger found them again. A corridor split into two paths, and Jack chose the left, leading them through a narrow passage where the walls dripped with condensation. Halfway through, the floor gave a sudden groan. Metal snapped beneath Jack's boot. He reacted too late. The ground split open, and a steel claw lashed upward, caught him across the chest, throwing him backward. He hit the floor hard, his rifle skidding from his grasp. The trap's second claw snapped downward, aiming for his throat. Leora's cry split the air. She surged forward, energy blazing from her palm. The light struck the claw, melting steel in a burst of heat. With her other hand, she grabbed Jack's arm and hauled him clear, dragging him back with strength far greater than her frame suggested. The trap clanged shut where he had lain seconds before. Jack coughed, his chest aching, but he was alive. Leora stood over him, her fiery eyes burning with intensity. "Be more careful, human. You are no use to us dead." Jack managed a dry breath, half a laugh, half a grunt of pain. "And here I thought you did not care." For the first time, a crack of something like amusement touched Leora's face, though it vanished as quickly as it came. Saris knelt beside him, her hands fluttering over the scrape across his chest. "Are you hurt? Let me see." Jack waved her off, retrieving his rifle. "I have had worse." But the truth was clear. The sisters had saved him, just as he had saved them. Each act bound them tighter, threads of survival weaving into something more. As they continued, Jack felt their eyes on him. Saris with quiet affection, Leora with fiery scrutiny. And in the space between them, he felt something he had not known in years. The faint, fragile stirrings of trust. The deeper they traveled, the more alive the bunker felt. Pipes hissed with bursts of steam, lights flickered in uneven rhythms, and the low hum of hidden machinery grew louder with every step. Jack felt as though the walls were breathing, the entire place watching them. They came to a stairwell that spiraled downward into darkness. The air grew colder as they descended, so cold that every breath became mist. Jack's rifle was steady in his hands, his eyes darting across every shadow, but even he could not predict what awaited below. At the base of the stairwell, a wide chamber stretched before them. It was lined with broken stasis pods, their glass long shattered. Strange alien machinery lay in twisted heaps, their purposes long forgotten. The sisters moved cautiously, their glowing eyes reflecting the pale light. Then the silence broke. A mechanical screech cut through the chamber. From the shadows emerged a drone larger than the others, its frame bristling with jagged limbs and spinning saws. Its central eye glowed a deep crimson, brighter and more menacing than the rest. It lunged. Jack fired, bullets sparking off its armor but failing to slow it. The machine barreled forward, one bladed limb swinging toward Saris. She cried out as the blade caught her across the side, sending her sprawling to the ground. Blood, faintly luminous, spilled across the floor. "Saris!" Leora's voice cracked like fire. She rushed forward, energy blazing from her hands. She hurled herself at the drone, her light burning into its armor. Sparks burst, but the machine barely faltered. Jack moved without thought. He sprinted to Saris, dropping to his knees beside her. Her face was pale, her luminous eyes wide with pain. He pressed a hand against the wound, feeling the warmth of her blood against his skin. "Stay with me," he said, his voice rough but steady. Saris trembled, her fingers clutching at his arm. "Do not let go." Jack's heart clenched. He kept pressure on the wound with one hand while raising his rifle with the other. The drone swung again, and Jack squeezed the trigger. Bullets slammed into the machine's sensors, cracking one of its glowing eyes. Leora leapt onto its back, her energy surging brighter than before. With a cry of fury, she drove her hand into the machine's core. The burst of light was blinding. The drone convulsed, its limbs flailing wildly before collapsing into a smoking heap. The chamber fell silent once more, the only sound the ragged breaths of the survivors. Jack lowered his rifle and looked back at Saris. She was still bleeding but alive. He pulled a strip of cloth from his coat and bound the wound as tightly as he could. His hands worked with soldier's precision, but his chest was tight with something far deeper than duty. Saris's eyes fluttered as she whispered, "You are warm, like the suns of home." Jack's throat tightened. He met her gaze, and in that moment he saw more than alien beauty. He saw trust, fragile and unspoken, placed entirely in his hands. When he finished binding the wound, Leora approached, her fiery eyes fixed on him. "You stayed with her. You risked yourself for her." Jack met her gaze, unflinching. "She would have done the same for me." Leora studied him, her expression torn between suspicion and something else she would not name. For a fleeting moment, her fire dimmed, replaced by a quiet respect. But then her eyes shifted to Saris, who clung to Jack's arm, and a different spark ignited within her. Something sharper, more complicated. The journey continued, slower now as Jack supported Saris with one arm. She leaned against him, her steps unsteady but determined. Leora walked close, her gaze flicking constantly between the two of them. At one point, Saris rested her head against Jack's shoulder, whispering softly, "Your strength makes me feel safe." Jack said nothing, but the weight of her trust pressed heavily on him. He had not been anyone's shield in a long time. He had forgotten what it felt like to be needed. Leora saw it all. Her jaw tightened, and when they reached another fork in the corridor, she spoke in a low voice meant only for Jack. "Do not let her bind herself to you so quickly. She does not understand your ways. To her, closeness is not simple. It is a promise." Jack turned his head slightly, his voice equally low. "I never asked her to promise anything." Leora's fiery gaze burned into him. "That does not matter. She is young. She feels deeply. And if you break her, you will answer to me." Jack's lips pressed into a thin line. He respected her protectiveness, but her warning only reminded him of the knife edge they were walking, between survival and something far more fragile. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the bunker. Jack carried most of Saris's weight when her strength failed, never complaining. In return, Leora saved him more than once. Once pulling him back from a collapsing section of floor, and another time blasting apart a drone that had almost ambushed him from the shadows. Each act pulled them closer, weaving bonds through fire and danger. But with every step, Jack could feel the tension coiling tighter. The sisters watching him, reacting to him in ways that tangled survival with something far more dangerous. One night, or what felt like night, in the endless dark, they stopped to rest in a chamber where the air was still and the machines silent. Jack leaned against the wall, exhaustion dragging at his bones. Saris settled beside him, her head once more on his shoulder. "You make the dark feel less cold," she whispered. Jack closed his eyes briefly. The words cut through his armor, leaving him raw. Across from them, Leora sat with her back straight, her gaze locked on the two of them. Her fiery eyes betrayed nothing, but Jack could feel the storm building within her. And he knew, with a certainty that left his chest heavy, that the trials ahead would test more than their strength against machines. They would test loyalty, trust, and the fragile threads of affection that had begun to weave between them. The corridors seemed endless, twisting deeper into the earth like the veins of a great, slumbering beast. The hum of the bunker grew louder with every step until it was no longer a background sound. It was a heartbeat, steady and suffocating. Jack's boots crunched against frost-coated metal as he helped Saris keep pace. Leora walked slightly ahead, her movements sharp and restless. She had grown quieter since their last rest, her eyes darting constantly toward Jack and her sister. Eventually, the passage opened into a vast circular chamber. Its walls were alive with moving light, shifting patterns of data streams flowing across metallic panels. In the center stood a towering column of machinery, its core pulsing with a cold blue glow. Saris's breath caught. The heart of the AI, it still lives. As if her words were a summons, the glow intensified. The chamber filled with a resonant voice. Not mechanical, but smooth, almost human. "Intruders. Unregistered. Identify." Jack instinctively raised his rifle. "We're just passing through," he muttered, though he knew it was pointless. Leora stepped forward, fire sparking faintly at her hands. "We are of the royal line of Salira. This world belongs to us. You will obey." The voice replied, unyielding. "You are echoes of a dead empire. Irrelevant. The law is unchanged. No contact with males. The curse remains." Jack frowned. "The curse? That's what this is all about." Saris's hand tightened on his arm. Her luminous eyes shimmered with fear. "It was decreed long ago by the AI itself. To protect our people, to prevent ruin. Any bond between a male and a female of our kind was forbidden. The punishment was death." Jack's stomach turned cold. He looked at her fragile figure beside him, at the blood still seeping faintly through the bandage he had tied. He thought of how tightly she had clung to him. "And now?" he asked the machine. The AI's voice echoed like judgment from a god. Now you are in violation. Contact between species is an abomination. The penalty is termination of the human, and of any Salira who harbors him. Leora stiffened, her flames burning hotter. You dare threaten us? We are heirs to the throne. You will not take him. Jack's heart thudded. He glanced at Ceres, whose face was pale, trembling. Then at Leora, whose fury threatened to ignite the room. And finally, back at the core of the machine. I've had enough of gods playing judge, he growled. He leveled his rifle. If it wants to end me, it's going to have to try harder. But before he could fire, the chamber shifted. Panels slid open in the walls, and dozens of drones poured out, their eyes glowing red. Ceres gasped. Leora moved to Jack's side instantly, fire blazing from her hands. Together, she said. The battle was chaos. Jack's rifle thundered, bullets sparking and tearing through machines. Leora unleashed waves of searing flame, melting drones into slag. Even Ceres, weakened though she was, lifted her hand and sent sharp bursts of light into the horde. Still, they were being pushed back. The drones were endless, pouring in like a tide. Jack's rifle clicked empty, and he swung it like a club, smashing one drone's eye in before another tackled him to the ground. He wrestled with it, sparks flying as its blade arm scraped against his chest plate. Just as the blade came down, a flare of light seared it in half. Leora. She pulled Jack up roughly, her voice sharp. Stay alive, human. Don't make me regret this. For the first time, Jack caught something unspoken in her eyes. Not just fire, but fear. Fear of losing him. The fight dragged on, but slowly, they carved a path through the machines. Jack's arms ached, his breath ragged. Ceres stumbled, her strength fading, but Jack caught her before she fell. And then, as the last drone collapsed in smoking ruin, the chamber shook with a deeper sound. The AI's voice filled the air again. Defiance confirmed. Judgment escalated. The core's glow darkened, shifting from blue to a menacing red. The data streams on the walls writhed like living veins. Jack felt the weight of it pressing into his mind, like the machine itself was trying to claw inside. He clenched his teeth, forcing it back. Leora spat flames toward the core, but they dissipated against an unseen barrier. It's shielding itself. Ceres swayed in Jack's arms, her voice faint but desperate. There is another way, a bond. If we link with you, human, we may break its hold. Cannot comprehend connection. Jack stared at her. A bond? What does that mean? Her hand trembled as it touched his chest. It means opening ourselves, letting you in, sharing what we are. Leora turned sharply, her eyes burning. No, he doesn't understand what that means for us. It isn't just survival, it is everything. Jack looked between them, his heart hammering. He saw Ceres's vulnerability, her hope. He saw Leora's fury, but also her fear of losing control. The AI's voice thundered again. Choose now, human. Abandon them and live. Stand with them and perish. Jack tightened his grip on his rifle, then looked back at the sisters. His voice was steady, unflinching. I don't abandon people. Not ever. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Ceres's eyes shone with fragile light. Leora's flames flickered, her jaw set, and together the three of them prepared to face the heart of the machine. The chamber trembled like the heart of a dying world. The AI's voice boomed from every wall, deeper now, filled with venom. Final protocol engaged. The purge begins. A siren wailed, and steel shutters clanged down over the exits. The entire bunker shifted, machinery awakening with a growl that reverberated through the floor. Jack steadied Ceres in his arms, then released her gently against the wall. He raised his rifle, though its weight felt heavier than ever. Leora stepped up beside him, her flames curling and snapping around her hands. The core in the center of the chamber glowed crimson, arcs of energy spiraling outward. The air grew hot, almost unbreathable. Jack muttered through clenched teeth. If this is how it ends, then we make it count. Saris reached out, her luminous fingers brushing his. The touch sent a strange warmth through him, not just physical but something deeper, like a pulse of memory and emotion. Her voice was soft but resolute. "Trust me, Jack. Trust us." Before he could question, Leora grabbed his other hand, her fire burning hot against his skin but not harming him. Her eyes blazed with conflict. "I warned you. This bond is no small thing. If we do this, human, you are bound to us. You become part of us. There will be no going back." Jack looked from one sister to the other, their beauty luminous against the crimson light. For the first time in years, he felt clarity in his heart. He gave a short nod. "Then we do it. Together." The bond snapped into place. It was like a floodgate bursting open. Memories not his own poured into Jack. Golden skies of a world long destroyed, laughter echoing through crystal halls, the grief of watching everything they loved turn to ash. He felt their pain, their hope, their longing. And in return, they felt his war's endless loss, the weight of survival, the loneliness that had eaten at him for years. The AI's voice grew distorted. "Impossible, unauthorized link, corruption detected." The core flared, lashing beams of red energy toward them. But Jack did not fall. The bond gave him strength beyond his own. His rifle glowed faintly in his hands, charged by Leora's fire and Saris's light. He fired, each shot exploding with amplified force, tearing into the drones that surged from hidden alcoves. Leora hurled gouts of white-hot flame, her power burning brighter as it intertwined with Jack's will. Saris raised her hands, weaving shields of shimmering light that deflected the AI's strikes. The three of them moved as one, an unbroken rhythm of fire, light, and steel. For the first time, Jack felt he was not merely surviving. He was fighting for something worth living for. The AI screamed, its voice a distortion of rage. "You cannot defy the law. The curse cannot be broken." Jack raised his rifle, smoke curling from the barrel, his voice steady and defiant. "Watch me." Together, he and the sisters focused their bond, pouring everything into a single strike. Leora's flames coiled around the bullet, Saris's light infused it with radiant energy, and Jack pulled the trigger. The shot ripped through the chamber, slamming into the core. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the machine howled, cracking open as sparks and fire poured out. The ground shook violently. The walls split, and molten light flooded the chamber. Jack grabbed both sisters, pulling them toward the nearest exit as the core collapsed in on itself. They sprinted through corridors now alive with fire and shrapnel. At the final threshold, the bunker gave one last roar before it caved, collapsing into the earth in a storm of dust and flame. The three of them tumbled into the wasteland outside, coughing as dawn broke over the ruined horizon. The sky was painted in hues of gold and pink, the sun breaking free of the storm. Jack lay on his back, chest heaving, his hands still gripping the sisters as if afraid they would vanish. Saris leaned against him, her luminous eyes soft, filled with tears. "You chose us, when no one else would have." Leora crouched nearby, her expression unreadable, but her fire had dimmed to a gentle glow. She looked at Jack for a long moment, then gave the faintest reluctant smile. "Perhaps you are worthy after all, human." Jack pushed himself to sit, staring at the two of them as the rising sun gilded their faces. For the first time in years, he did not feel the wasteland pressing down on him. He felt possibility. He exhaled slowly, a rough laugh breaking from his chest. "Guess I'm not alone anymore." The sisters sat close, one radiant and gentle, the other fierce and untamed, both bound to him now in ways he barely understood. And in their presence, Jack realized he had found more than survival. He had found beauty in ruin, love where he thought none could exist, and the promise of a future waiting to be built. As the three of them rose together, the sun climbing higher behind them, the wasteland no longer seemed dead. It seemed alive with hope, and Jack knew, without doubt, that his story was only beginning.